the United States Capitol, a symbol of democracy, the home of decision-making and the workplace of our elected representatives. But do the candidates we choose to represent us actually represent all Americans, including young people? Last summer, I was fortunate enough to intern with Congressman David Cicilline of Rhode Island, where I learned the answer to that question is often no. Today, I want to be talking a little bit about my experience working on Capitol Hill, as well as how we can break down barriers drawn between Gen Z and millennial citizens and their representatives. One of the most powerful experiences during my internship was attending the markup of the Protecting Our Kids Act, a bill in response to the May 2022 Uvalde shooting. While it was profoundly moving to witness such an important conversation, I vividly remember scanning my eyes across the mahogany benches, trying to find a peer to sit next to. I quickly realized that I was by far the youngest person in the room, surrounded by representatives who likely hadn't attended a school in decades. Where were the voices of the young people being affected by this issue? Why was the safety of America's schools being framed as a partisan issue? And if not given a platform for change, how could young people build their own? Now, there's a very good reason I couldn't find someone within 10 years of my age to sit with at the hearing. Let's go through some numbers. Despite the median age of the American population being 39, according to the Council on Foreign Relations, the average age in the Senate is 64, and the average age in the House is 58. Of all the Congresses since 1789, our Congress, the 118th, has the second oldest Senate and the third oldest House in history. Keep in mind, this was all occurring during the administration of the oldest president ever, who directly succeeded the second oldest president ever. In fact, some of the most influential members of Congress are way over 65, including the former Speaker of the House and the Senate Majority and Minority Leaders. Now, while Congresspeople can go up for re-election every 2 or 6 years, there's no limit on how many terms they can serve, and most incumbents are re-elected with ease. The longest-serving member of the Senate has served for 42 years, having just started his 8th term in 2022. So, why is this a problem? Resistance to modernized thinking can have real-life consequences. For example, social media has completely revolutionized the way we live, think, and mobilize, and has found its way to the political stage. It is more important now than ever that our representatives understand how social media affects the lives of everyday Americans, because they are the ones in charge of passing legislation to regulate it. During Mark Zuckerberg's testimony in front of Congress in both 2018 and 2021, several Congresspeople had a difficult time understanding how Facebook works, despite being on the committee to regulate its data collection. This resulted in the world-famous question, will you commit to ending Finsta? Several other senators expressed confusion on Facebook's revenue model, with Mark Zuckerberg having to explain to them that their income is based on ads. A similar thing happened about a month ago when the CEO of TikTok was brought before Congress and grilled by both sides of the aisle. CNN Business ran a headline that made it clear just how resistant Congress was to updating its views. Washington has already made up its mind about TikTok. This reoccurring disconnect illustrates a lack of interest, self-education, and open-mindedness towards modern-day political topics that will affect the next generation. As technology continues to advance, more and more complex issues will reach the floor, including the regulation of AI and electronic voting. Lines are also drawn between representatives and their constituents through their wallets. Each year, corporations continue to drastically outspend labor political action committees, or PACs, and their supportive representatives. Plus, lobbyists are able to effectively buy votes. This trend represents accountability to profits, not people. The median congressional net worth supports this theme, averaging over $1 million and counting. Most members are multimillionaires, despite their salaries being $174,000 annually. Book deals, speaking engagements, the works, all contribute to this dynamic. In 2021, the average American household made way less than half of what an individual congressperson makes in a year. This illustrates how representatives have capitalized off their position while the country is still recovering from the pandemic. Some politicians, especially younger ones, have begun to realize that this is a problem and have traded in large-scale PAC donations for small-scale donations from everyday people. This phenomenon, also called grassroots fundraising, has allowed candidates to reach their monetary goals by connecting to people in all income brackets and backgrounds. By showing the average American that their $5 contributes to the democratic process, candidates are re-engaging a portion of the electorate that has long been ignored. Overall, some of the biggest issues in modern American politics are complacency and resistance to out-of-the-box thinking. Nowhere is this better displayed than with Congress's approach to the gun violence epidemic. Our generation has had to endure frequent lockdown drills since elementary school, especially after Sandy Hook, which occurred a mere hour from where I grew up in Connecticut. I was also in elementary school at the time and remember the entire state going on lockdown that day. After Sandy Hook, we've experienced ramped-up security in schools across the nation, with the installation of keypads, self-locking doors, and even armed security guards. After the 1999 Columbine massacre, the first high-profile school shooting in the United States, we have suffered through over 330 mass shootings, resulting in thousands of deaths and injuries, and yet little political progress has been made. According to Education Week magazine, 2022 had the highest number of school shootings on record, with a record of 51. For 25 years, we have been dealing with mass shootings on a scale and frequency the world has never seen. Many of our representatives have been in office this whole time. After the 2019 Christchurch shooting in New Zealand, although a much smaller country than the US, it took their parliament just 6 days to ban most semi-automatic assault weapons, and there has not been another mass shooting since. Similar action was taken in the United Kingdom following a school shooting in Scotland. Like New Zealand, there's not been another shooting since. This proves that it is possible for governments to put aside their partisan politics for the greater good and for the safety of their nations. So, how do we fix this? Well, it starts with us. Most of us will be voting within the next few years. I know that I'm very excited to cast my first vote in the next national election in 2024, including for the next president. However, it's also important to vote in local elections and to do research on the individual, not just their party. Some positions, like judges, don't even have a party listed, so it's extra important to look into the platform. The term educated voter is thrown out a lot, but what it really means is voting for someone that you know will support what you value. When educating yourself about the candidates, ask yourself, will they represent my most important values? And are they open-minded? If you're considering someone for re-election, ask yourself, have they represented my most important values? And do they even answer the phone when I call? When communicating with other congressional offices during my internship, I learned that some of the most influential members of Congress don't even take the time to answer a phone call from their constituents. Even if you're not eligible to vote yet, your congresspeople still represent you. And there are a number of other ways to get involved in politics. Call your congresspeople. Keep calling, and you may become a known voice and will be more likely to be directly connected to your representative. Keep calling. You are not always talking into a void. Look, I'm not going to stand here and say that I don't feel hopeless sometimes. It's easy to watch the news, roll your eyes, dismiss politics as a mess, and yourself powerless to solve it all. But apathy is not the antidote. We need to keep fighting for the future of American democracy and for our own futures. And things have already begun to change in large part because of our generation. Over the past several elections, Gen Z and millennial voter turnout has hit record highs and has made big impacts. Last year, the first Gen Z member of Congress was elected, and from our home state of Florida. But next time things seem gloomy, remember, you do not need to be elected to represent America. Small acts amplify, especially when done collectively. Together, we can eliminate the divisive lines drawn between representatives and youth. That's what I hope you can take away from today, that you can bring perspective and positivity to local, state, and national government that will create change for many years to come.